Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And we're going in this video to have a look at a piece of hypocrisy, really. A sort of a forgetfulness of things past. I did the Flash video last night mentioning it, and I said I'd be doing this video today. And we're going to be talking about Humza Yousaf's reaction to Sir Keir Starmer lionising and praising Margaret Thatcher. Now, like her or loathe her, whether you agreed with her policies or not, Thatcher was, without doubt, a commensurate politician and a strong and powerful party leader. In much the same way as you can say the same about Nicola Sturgeon. I couldn't stand Nicola Sturgeon. I loathed her policies, I loathed everything she stood for. But I accept that she was a good politician and she was an excellent party leader. And so I can see why, in one sense, Sir Keir Starmer would say these things. He, after all, is a terrible leader, and so is Humza Yousaf. Neither of them really control their parties. Neither of them are natural leaders. They just somehow found themselves there. But it is the reaction from Humza Yousaf to Sir Keir's comments, which is truly, jaw-droppingly, astoundingly hypocritical. Let's have a look. So the SNP's Margaret Thatcher total hypocrisy exposed as they helped bring her to power in 1979. I seem to remember it was May 79. I remember watching that, and she came in, she had a big majority, and she went on obviously to become Britain's longest serving Prime Minister. And it's just, like her or loathe her, she was there, she was a leader. Whether you agreed with the direction of travel, you at least felt you were moving somewhere. Not like a lot of them today, where they seem to be milling around in circles, kicking their own arse. They don't know what they're doing. Thatcher had a direction, and she changed Britain. Whether you think it's better or not, I don't know. I think certainly Britain needed to change. It was still in the post-war mentality. And I think she did kick it up the arse. I don't think everything she did was particularly good. I think a lot of what she did was good, but not all of it, certainly. And I think she did some of it far too quickly. But it is the way it is, and we're living in the world that we're in. But it's the very fact that after Sir Keir Starmer highlights and praises her for what she's done, then you get Humza Yousaf and Stephen Flynn standing there like agog about this. But they were the ones who put her into power. Not them personally, but it was their party that put them into power. Anyway, the Nationalist Party have been in uproar over the last day or two after Sir Keir Starmer praised Margaret Thatcher. But Humza Yousaf and Stephen Flynn failed to mention that their party played the key role in getting her elected as Prime Minister. Because of course they did. They couldn't abide the Labour government at the time. I mean, to be fair, the Labour government in 79 just had to go. It was awful. You had the winter of discontent. You had Jim Callaghan coming back. And there was the claim of crisis. What crisis? He never actually said that, to be fair to him. But they were old school. They were all, the leadership of the Labour Party they'd all gone through the Second World War. They'd all been the old farts, if you will. They'd been there too long, and they needed change. The world was changing, and you had this old cabal of Labour that just wouldn't change. And they were beholden to the unions. And of course, they gave in, and that is why you ended up with the winter of discontent. You had the IMF in. Britain basically went bankrupt. You had years of constant strikes. Labour had to go. Everyone knew it. And that is why the Tories really got in massively. But the election wasn't due. But there was a vote. And who sided with the Tories? It was, of course, the SNP. And that was the end of the Labour government. And to be fair, they had to go, and so it was always going to be the Tories coming in. Who knew after that what the hell was going to happen? But hey. Anyway, the SNP have been slated for its hypocrisy after its massive outcry about Sir Keir Starmer's praise about former Tory Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. The Nationalists have been up in arms about the Labour leader's comments over the weekend and accused him of insulting Scotland. Westminster leader Stephen Flynn has even found time to write to Anna Sarwar about whether he agrees with the celebration of the Iron Lady's reign. But all the uproar has failed to mention is that it was the SNP that helped to bring Mrs. Thatcher to power in 1979. But we all know it. The former poster boy for the nationalist cause and ex-First Minister Alex Salmond even admitted that Scots didn't mind the economic side of her policies when questioned about his thoughts of her back in 2008. This was when his party ruled Scotland as a minority government with support from the Scottish Tories. Sir Keir caused uproar among the Scottish branch of his party when he claimed that Mrs Thatcher was one of the post-war prime ministers who had a driving sense of purpose, ambition and a plan to deliver. And to be fair, he's not wrong. She most certainly did. He also wrote in the Sunday Telegraph that she sought to drag Britain out of its stupor by setting loose unnatural entrepreneurialism. Well, she did, and she, like I say, not everything she did, despite some people just having this absolute hate fest on her, not everything she did was utterly bad. Some things were, of course, because no prime minister is perfect, no party ever gets everything right. But it wasn't all bad, and that's the thing. It wound up the nationalists with Humza Yousaf taking time out of his busy COP28 schedule. Busy schedule? How many chauffeurs and chefs and cooks and cleaners does the man have to meet? How many times does he have to run up to famous people and go, please can I shake your hand for the camera, and pretend that he knows them? How many times is he going to be sloping off back up to the room with the Saturday girl to put in a good half an hour graft? But she's on top. Anyway, busy COP28 schedule, my arse. Anyway, he said it was an insult to Scotland. He said what Thatcher did to mining and industrial communities was not entrepreneurialism, it was vandalism. Does he think that Scotland would be able to compete with China? Does he think Scotland would compete with Far East Asia now? Of course not. We had to change. We had to become a tech economy. We had to become that. She pushed the one thing that actually ended up earning us so much more money than just about any other country in the world, and which to this day is one of the biggest earners in the world, and that is the market, the stock market, the push, the big bang and all that. All down to her. Whether you like it or not, that is true. And if you had to kept all your industries, they wouldn't have died quickly under Thatcher. They'd have died slowly, piecemeal, here, there. They still would have gone, because you couldn't have maintained that industry, not with the union strength, against the likes of the Far East producing the same products for a third of the price, and on time, and better quality, and without constant union disagreement and strikes. And I was only a kid at the time, but I can tell you that was absolutely what it was. I went through the early 70s when every other day there was a bloody coal strike, power cuts and that because of the coal miners' strikes. Anyway, back in 79, the SNP voted with the Tories to end the 1974-79 Labour government under Jim Callaghan, which was a minority administration. The 11 nationalist MPs voted with their apparent arch rivals to bring him down by a solitary voter and usher in an election which was won convincingly by Thatcher and brought about 18 years of Conservative rule. Here's an interesting fact. Since Harold Wilson, and this 74, I think it was, 74, Harold Wilson won a general election for Labour. With the exception of Tony Blair, no other Labour leader has won a general election. Now, the election might be next year, which means it will have been, in 50 years, only one Labour Prime Minister has won an general election. Isn't that just a stunning fact? It'll change next year. It'll be 2, because I think Keir Starmer will win it. But that I just thought was an amazing fact. Mate, stick here for the facts, guys. Anyway, reading is hard. Labour peer Lord Folkes also criticised the SNP for total hypocrisy. Speaking to the Scottish Daily Express, he said it's total hypocrisy, which he just said. Especially from 2007 to 2011, Alex Salmond relied on Annabel Goldie and the Tories, first of all to get him elected, and then for every budget he put forward. They wouldn't have been able to without the complete support of the Tories, so it's ludicrous. She wouldn't have been Prime Minister but for them, and they were like turkeys voting for Christmas. There were 11 of them, and then, when the election came along, they were reduced, I think, to 3. So it was a deliberate act of sabotage of the then Labour government. Mr Callaghan made a famous speech at Westminster following his loss as he lambasted the Nats as turkeys voting for Christmas. He added, "We can truly say that once the leader of the opposition discovered what the Liberals and the SNP would do, she found the courage of their convictions." And she did. And she took them apart. She took the Labour apart, but Labour had to go. And it was down to the SNP. So they're able to sit there now and go, "Oh, it's terrible, 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 terrible." It's sheer hypocrisy. After all, they brought her in, they put her in power, and then they relied for years on the Tories to get them through government, through the early O's and that, when they were a minority government, or late O's, early ones, when they were the minority government. Oh man, it's like Lear, isn't it? How sharper than a serpent's tooth it is to have an ungrateful child. Heavens to Betsy. Well, they're a bunch of ungrateful wretches. Anyway, I'm going to come up and we'll finish the video. As I was doing the transition and coming up, it occurred to me it's how grateful. It's a thankless child rather than an ungrateful child, but the same thing. It's the same thing. They are, and yet there they go. They sit there and they try to like, "Oh no, we hate Thatcher because it's popular or something." They're the ones who put her in. Hypocritical, two-faced twonks. Anyway, enough of that. I'm rounding off. Thank you very much for watching. Do hit the supply button. Subscription button. Please subscribe. I tell you what, it's too early in the morning. My brain isn't in gear yet. Anyway, till next time, stay safe, stay well, and I will speak to you later. Bye.